about back then, and so it needs to be put out there. And if he can get going and do what you and I have tried to do for 20 years, God bless him. But it is going to at least aim at re-educating a very dumbed down America, where we can't, not only can we not compete with foreign countries, but we lack the grooming, the proper training to even put the right people up in Washington to manage our national affairs for us. We've got a bunch of hooligans that are self-serving, greedy, and you know, you're going to throw Jew in there, but I'll say that it's a little broader than that. It is a new world order scheme, and though it's there's a couple of guys who we know are long-term Jewish families running this thing, they'll take anybody that will come over their way and bow to them. So I put in a deal for Ron Paul's plan. I don't know if I've sent that to you yet, but it's out there, and it's a very good thing.
Tell me about, just expand a little bit on Ron Paul's, because what I want to talk about today is your plan for the Little Red Schoolhouse, which we started years ago, and that expanded and grew into an accredited college, Timothy Bible College. Tell me, you're right, we have met, both of us have met Ron Paul. I've met Ron Paul, spoken at several events with Ron Paul. And he was ignored just the same way Charles Collins was ignored in the whole presidential race by the same parties. What is he proposing, and how does it differ from the Little Red Schoolhouse, which has been very successful? I mean, as a matter of fact, my neighbor over here, who has been doing a prison ministry for many years, you graduated his daughter, rescued his daughter from the public school system, which was, by the way, wasn't the National Education Association, wasn't that started by the same Rockefellers that head up this New World Order that donated the building called UN, donated the land for that?
Well, if you read Dr. Dennis Cuddy's book, and I have it, it's part of our required reading for our college people, but he, in his book, lined up the Khrushchev, and we're going way back here, but the Khrushchev plan for taking over America without firing a shot next to the NEA, National Education Association, of this country's plan for education, and it lines up almost point for point, and it denigrates the family, it denigrates it's a communist takeover, is what it is. It is where we are now. It is tearing down of, oh, well, we don't want these little cells out here. We don't want a little, your idea of Liberty Village. We can't have that because we can't control those people. You know, you look at the Amish. The Amish get by with doing this even in this oppressed country. They don't bother anybody. They don't mind anybody else's business. They don't deal with the government anymore, and they absolutely have to, and they're pretty self-sufficient. So, you know, it can be done, but we're so indoctrinated, and our schools are promoting this now, that we're so in those school systems, and now in multi-generational groups of parents believe there is an Uncle Sam that is somehow going to entitle you to something that maybe you didn't even work for, but most people are afraid to lose that, and when you get right down to the nut cutting and say, you need to get away from the government, you need to get away from the bankers, you need to not owe anybody anything, you need to do all of your bartering within the system of the little community you're in, and only go outside that if it's absolutely mandatory, or you need to trade. There's your free trade agreement. Do free trade with other communities.
Well, you know,
But,
Jake,
you have lots of resources, but it's people are afraid to do that because they're going to get off the tip, so to speak.
I have in my plan for Liberty Villages, you know, it really offsets the whole demonization of me by people saying, "Oh, he's a racist," you know, he's a racist. I would love to see the Liberty Villages set up, and if you've got a
Wait. How can you be such a racist when you came and joined with me at an all-black church for an extended period of time and embrace those people as your own?
I
You didn't look
don't
very
care.
racist to me then.
No, and it's not. I mean, this, you know, it's simply not true. It's a demonization. I don't care what color you are. You bleed red. And
Amen.
if and I the Constitution, as I read it, gives you the right to worship any way you please. If you want to hug trees,
Amen.
I got a pair of tweezers here. We can get the splinters out. If you want to beat your head, if you want to beat your head against that wailing wall, knock yourself out, dude. I'll watch. And if you want to get down on your hands and knees and stick your nose in the dirt, your ass up in the air, I'll try to keep the Saint Bernard off of you. But
well, Brother Douglas, I know your problem. I have this figured out.
What's that?
Here's your problem. You and oftentimes me and people like Eli or other folks like that, and some of them have been Jews, have a tendency to tell it like it is and to not be afraid to say, oh, it's Rothschild or it's whoever, Obama. You know, it's a dangerous thing in the world we live in to start shooting at some of these people because they are powerful and they don't like to be talked about in a way that exposes their misguided and perverted heinies.
Well,
so when you do that, you're going to get attacked.
I said my career, Jake, has spanned pissing off 3 presidents, 4 now, I guess, 4 presidents now. But wasn't it one of the Rockefellers? I saw this on my little chat room here. Wasn't it one of the Rockefellers who said, "Oh, we will teach them, just not too much"?
Yeah. Well, I'm right there with you. Maybe not as broad a scope, but one of my elders had said years ago, he says, he asked me the question in front of my congregation. He says, is there anybody in your county that you haven't pissed off? And I started counting, and I couldn't get past my left hand.
Well, you got attacked for starting the school. I mean, my God, that's just incredible. I didn't know whether it was because you started the school or because you came on my radio show.
Well, the people that tried to run me out of this county with the school didn't even know I was on your show. They just considered the Little Red Schoolhouse as competition for the federal school system.
They
told me that.
That's right. And Liberty Villages.
And the sad thing is, here's the thing that they don't like. We show them up, not purposely, but we show them up because locally, if I know the percentages right, one of the towns here in this county is sending 17% to college, 41% dropout rate. They're already in the 4th year on probation because they don't come up to the state standards. There's another town here that's in the 21% bracket for sending their kids to college, those that wanted to go. And their dropout rate's 36%. Now ours is, you know the one that dropped out this year. Outside of that, we have a 0 dropout rate this year. We had a 0 dropout rate last year, and our going to college if you want to rate is up in the low 90s. So that's where the public school system or the public indoctrination program has actually come to us on the sly behind the scenes and said, please help us, we'll give you one of them was even going to give me a whole building, until the school board there got a hold of it and said, oh no, you don't mess with those folks, they're against us. And again, I got vilified, our program got vilified because it didn't fall under their standardized, we're got to indoctrinate all of them program. They don't want anybody thinking for themselves. They do not want an uncontrollable society.
I've got somebody here that says, if Liberty Villages is a great plan, then how come there aren't any? And my answer is that it's the money power, and it's not that I haven't been trying. I've been trying, and I listed it in my magazine, and they tried to kill me and wiped out a few $1 million of income, and so yeah, I've
well, they're wrong because, as I said, the Amish and the Moravian and there's a whole bunch of things, outfits out there, groupings out there, communities out there that have actually got this going, and it does work. It's just not called Liberty Village. It's that concept, though. It's that we'll take care of ourselves. We don't need the federal government to tell us how to grow something in our backyard and that sort of thing. I here have a Cherokee clan. Of course, it's only those in my extended family that are included, but we've made it a recorded burial ground, which means we can't add any more buildings to it. But we're doing, in some fashion, that same Liberty Village approach. It is called Cherokee Hills, and you know how we're working at trying to get it self-sufficient.
That's right.
That plan works, and it doesn't have to be Clay Douglas's little, this is my ideal village thing. It can be just that we have gotten a group together that doesn't want to be under the oppressive control of the federal government, and we can do our own thing and do it better than they can. That's your bottom line, and it works.
It's real easy to do. There are people that Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church had been right there. It wasn't Waco at all. They weren't in Waco. They were in Elk City, Texas. I've been there. And that Elk City, Texas, that church had been there for 50 years. And they were becoming self-sufficient. They were living together.
C3 with a clause in their contract that says this corporation will not do anything to rock the government boat. Basically, that's what it politically correct because they signed a paper and made a contract with the devil to turn the church over to him. And you have spoken and get maligned for saying, oh, well, the satanic Jew.
That's right, and you know, the problem I have with the Jewish religion is exactly what Jesus said. You are of your father, the devil. They're not practicing a satanic religion, and I'm not. It's not. Again, the Constitution protects you. You can worship any way you want. If you
Well,
don't
I want to
want,
ask you a question. How is it they can put a mosque, a Muslim mosque, list for Agenda 21 to be ethnically cleansed because we're not mainstream label on our door religion. We're on the free. You'd be attacking yourself.
that's right.
But the problem is that people get offended because, oh, you're talking about a whole group of people. Well, I'm talking about another group of people, the Christians or the Mormons or the Muslims or whatever. And we already talked about this. The problem with this is it sounds like we're attacking a whole people when we're attacking a perverted ideology. And I could do a whole program on John Calvin starting the Presbyterian Church, and it does not follow his foundation anymore. And the same thing with the followers of John Wesley and the followers of Martin Luther, who brought a failed church or a misguided church back to the Bible and back to God. And that's where we stand today. And people don't want to look at that because, oh, you're attacking the Lutherans. I'm not. I'm not even attacking the Catholics. Life like he should. He just is a little misguided by the label on his door. That doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Same way with your Jewish guys. I mean, we've got Jews that have come to Christ and become Messianic Jews in our extended group. One of them in Ohio is really an avid Messianic Jew. She's lovely, and her husband is. We're not throwing a whole bunch of people under the bus. We're trying to identify perverted ideologies, what it is.
Alright, I just heard a little sound here. Problem with the call. Hang on here. Okay, that looks like it's coming back here. And they said the sound was breaking up at Revolution. If I don't know that. If the sound's breaking up at Revolution, guys, let me know and I'll hang up and try to recall on Skype. Now, over 150 years ago, okay, something's happened here. Let me see here. I don't know what's happening over here. Don't know exactly what's going on. Alright. I think we're back up on a Revolution. And I can still hear you. Alright. I see somebody in here said, oh, well, God bless the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians and the atheists and the Buddhists. Now, atheists out there, you know, I heard they actually sued somebody in Florida. They were suing the state of Florida because they didn't have a holiday like the Christmas or anything like that. And the judge ruled against them. Said you do have a holiday. You do have a national holiday. You know, you don't believe in God. Your holiday is obviously April Fool's Day.
That's good.
You know, and you know, again, the back to the concept of Liberty Villages. I don't think I addressed that properly. You know, the Liberty Village isn't.
Breaking up now here.
Huh? What's
Mr.
that?
Douglas, you are now breaking up here. I'm not getting every word all the way.
All right, let me call you right back.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Hello.
All right, there we go. How's that? Any better?
No, it's worse.
It's worse? Let me try you again on another computer here. I can't hear you on that one at all. That one's not working at all. Okay. Okay, looks like everything's working here. What's going on in the chat room?
Hello?
All right, how's that now?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me, Jake? Great. Jake, can you hear me?
Lord.
Can you hear me, Jake?
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Hello?
Can you hear me now, Jake? Hello, Jake. Can you hear me? I don't know what's going on here. Can you hear me yet?
Hello?
Jake, I can't hear you here. I don't know what's going on here. Let me try you on a cell phone. All right. All right, let me try this again. I don't know. We'll try Jake again.
Hello?
All right, can you hear me yet? Jake,
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, evidently it was one of the stations that we had on here was causing interference. But I've got you now, and we're back on Revolution. So, again, my apologies there. And where were we here before I got distracted here? We were talking about the Liberty Village thing. Somebody said, well, won't they get, they would get attacked. They would get attacked. And that's what happened at Waco, folks. That's what happened at Waco. But my plans for that was, one, to have each Liberty Village house veterans. We've got so many homeless veterans. And according to the last Homeland Security assessment, the veterans were targeted along with Christian identity, along with militia. They were attacked and targeted. So, you know, we've got homeless veterans out there. I would like to see each Liberty Village house half a dozen veterans to help protect the place. Milk the goats and everything else. Can you hear me, Jake?
Yeah, you're preaching Bible there. The Bible says we're supposed to take care of our troops and our widows and our orphans, and as a society, we're not doing that. And your concept of a village that takes care of its own and that is self-sufficient is very biblical.
Now, I've also pointed out that basically the concept I have here, which is pretty simple, grow your own food, generate your own energy, that concept is doable in a neighborhood. In a neighborhood. I mean, if you just got out and went up and met your neighbors, as you do, Jake. I mean, you kind of took your neighbors back when you showed up to give them a hand with their property.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing here? Well, I'm your neighbor. I came to help.
Right.
If you got in your neighborhood and went and talked to every neighbor in your block, just your block, and said, look, we're going to do a little experiment here. We're going to plant a garden in the backyard, and we're going to put solar and a wind generator on everybody's roof, so everybody's house pays them. Hook it up. We're not trying to break away from the power companies. We just want to help the power companies and get paid for it. We want to roll our meters backwards and get a check from the power company. And if you know, we put up a little greenhouse in the back, I would say a greenhouse, because we'd like to protect it from the aluminum being sprayed on you by your government. And oh yeah, there's a little bit of barium in there, but that shouldn't bother you for a few years. And if you did that, if everybody's block did that, then you start taking back your neighborhood. Start with your neighborhood. I mean, it's a, you know, I'd love to see the New World Order come down, but you can only do it block by block.
That's right.
County by county, town by town.
That's the same thing with education. We've got to re-educate people, one child, one adult at a time, until they get the indoctrination set aside and the truth implanted, so that they know what's really going on.
Now, they said here that Miss Kitty said, until the government has a change of mind and agenda, these kinds of communities will be in the crosshairs. Well, you're absolutely right, Miss Kitty. You're absolutely right, because they want you to. That's what I've told people that Waco was. That was a psychological operation against the American people. That was a psychological operation. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. That's what they want. Now, I've got a couple of things here that, and somebody else on here said, yeah, the farmer behind me is growing tomatoes, corn, strawberries, and veggies, has 2 long greenhouses. If you do that, you don't have to worry about the trucks having enough fuel to get to you. And one of the articles I sent out here trying to respond to the charge of anti-Semitism was written in 1998 by Grace Housel. She says, American Jews sympathetic to Israel dominate key positions in all areas of our government where decisions are made regarding the Middle East. This being the case, is there any hope of ever changing U.S. policy? American presidents, as well as most members of Congress, support Israel, and they know why. U.S. Jews sympathetic to Israel donate lavishly to their campaign and she says the answer to achieving an even-handed Middle East policy might lie elsewhere among those who support Israel but don't really know why. This group is the vast majority of Americans. They are well-meaning, fair-minded Christians who feel bonded to Israel and Zionism, often from atavistic feelings, in some cases dated from childhood. She says, I'm one of those. I grew up listening to stories of a mystical, spiritual Israel, and this was before a modern political entity with the same name appeared on our map. So I attended Sunday school and watched an instructor draw down window type shades to show maps of the Holy Land. I imbibed Christians of a good and chosen people who fought against their bad, unchosen enemies. And in my early 20s, I began traveling the world, earning my living as a writer. I came to the subject of the Middle East rather late in my career. I was sadly lacking in knowledge regarding that area. About all I knew was what I'd learned in Sunday school, and typical of U.S. Christians, I somehow considered a modern state created in 1948 as a homeland for Jews persecuted under the Nazis as a replica of the spiritual, mystical Israel I had heard about as a child. And when in 1979, I went to Jerusalem, I planned to write about the three great monotheistic religions and leave out politics, not write about politics, scoffed one Palestinian, smoking a water pipe in the old walled city. We eat politics morning, noon, and night. Now, typical of U.S. Christians, and I get this, the owner of the station that we're broadcasting on doesn't want to demonize any particular religions, but Christians are being demonized. I even saw somebody on the chat room that used an X instead of the word Christ. Now, I have a little problem with that. And I also, we are being set up right now in the Middle East, and all of the indicators point towards the Zionist rulers of Israel, which many Jews are against. But you could even take it back further to the Civil War and a Confederate general by the name of Pike, who wrote the Morals and Dogma, the handbook for the Masonic religion, and he predicted 3 world wars. We've had 2 of those, and with 9/11, they set the stage for a 3rd world war, as Pike predicted, against the Muslims. Now, I said that to say this. I saw and had up on my site for quite a few months a film made back in the 50s about the Muslims, about Muhammad. However, Muhammad, they never showed Muhammad, they just followed his followers, and Muhammad told the people to go to, I believe it was Ethiopia, because the Christian king of Ethiopia would take care of them and protect them. The Pharisees were there, and they were telling the king, this was with Anthony Quinn, I believe, was the star of the movie, and the king said, why are you after these people? What's wrong with these people? And the Pharisees said, they're religious rebels. Now, the king, being Christian, asked him, what's your problem? What are they talking about? Why are you a religious rebel? How do you feel about Jesus? And they pretty much agreed with the Christians that Jesus, or they felt that Jesus was a prophet sent by God. The Christians believed that Jesus was God, and but the king says these people can stay here as long as they want, and you will leave them alone. He protected them against the Pharisees, and I see that happening right here, right now. They're trying to divide. Well, you know, Dearborn, Michigan is all Muslims, and I don't see why we can't get along with the Muslims. I've been to New York City, and I sold to shops up and down the streets in Brooklyn and in New York, and in one shop there would be a Muslim, in one shop there would be a Jew, in another shop there would be a Christian. They live together. I don't know why they can't do that in Jerusalem, and I'd like to ask your opinion on that, because to me, I have a Christian attitude here, and that don't mean that I'm weak or I'm gonna put up with any crap from anybody. You know, I'm at I won't turn the other cheek, but you can have the first swing, and after that it's all over. But I'd like for you to address that. As Grace said here, she wanted to write about the three religions that all say there's one God, and I don't know that that's true, but I don't think God really cares what language you refer or what name you refer to one God as. Could you enlighten me a little bit?
Well, and that's where we get in trouble, and we talked about that in our Bible studies, that we get into the nomenclature, to the syntax, to the vernacular problem of saying one God, and if you look at the list of actual titles that we go by as humans, there's a whole bunch of them. And if it is a singular God, and it is the God who created everything, my ancestors, the Cherokee, called him the Great White Father or whatever, he's spoken of as creator because we didn't call him Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever, doesn't make the Cherokee Indian wrong in their approach. They had one God. The one God was the creator. It seems like to me that's the bottom line, but we as a people tend to build walls between us, and that's one of the reasons the Liberty Village runs up against such resistance, is that people are going to say, well, wait a minute, you're wanting me to get it with a group of like-minded people and pull away from the system we're in, and the problem is it's the indoctrination. The system is now the God. And that's where we run into problems, is we're going to call ourselves Americans rather than Christians, or rather than, and even that, the Christian or the Jew that we're talking about generally pretenders to those ideologies because they don't really go to them. Jesus looked at the Jew when he presented himself to, and I'm going to just use Pharisee. Forget the Jew.
That word didn't exist, Jake. That word didn't exist. That word, the J word, didn't exist in Jesus' day, did it?
Well, it's short for people of Judah. Now, the people of Judah were not Israel. If you get real technical about this, the reason he was in the wilderness outside the Jerusalem wall was those people out there represented Judah. They were true Jews, if you will. The people inside, the Israelites who were under the Pharisees, you notice he didn't come in until the very last, and he knew they were going to throw him up on the cross, and they were going to kill him, because here's the Messiah coming to the people who were called Israel, who didn't act a thing like it. And with our Bible study that we're going to look at for Sunday, he says, if you are my people, then you will keep my words. Their words, the very things they should have been teaching their people, the Pharisees should have been teaching Israel, was that the Messiah, when he comes, will come from this place. This will happen. All of these things will happen. All these prophecies will come true, which they did. But they didn't want to change. They didn't want to submit themselves to the Messiah they supposedly have been looking for. And so they get into the ideology where the looking for the Messiah is more the religion, more the God than the Messiah himself. We've got the same problem now in Christianity here. you know, you've got a bunch of people that are looking for the tribulation or Armageddon or all these titles of things to happen rather than allowing their heart to believe the truth and just learn to live that way. And my bottom line is, you may not like my Bible, but it works for me and it works for everybody I talk into it. It is stuff that works. You may not want to call it Jesus stuff. You may not want to say it was a creator who wrote it. It still works. That is not up for question. The stuff in there works, and it makes relationships work. And I've had years of watching it happen.
You know, if it works for you, you know. Now the other thing, and we talked about, you know, in New York how the Muslims and the Christians work together. I mean, if the Muslim religion works for these people, and they're not hurting anyone, they are not trying to kill anyone, they are not trying to steal from their neighbors. And the Bible tells you that. I mean, come on, it's the Ten Commandments. You know, it's a golden rule. That's
well, the Christian Constitution is supposed to preserve their right to do that without us shooting them down for doing it.
right.
Like
And our Constitution.
The wall if you want to, bow to Mecca. We don't, you know, all that stuff's fine. If it works for you, fine. I can't do that because I know what I do works, and I will tell you about it with great authority and confidence. That doesn't mean you got to go there.
Right. That's it. That's it. You know, that's what I've been trying to tell people. I'm not putting you down for being Jewish unless, or Muslim, or for your particular variety of Christianity. And there's a lot of different varieties of Christianity out there, isn't there? What about the Mormons? Are they the ones that kept Howard Hughes trapped and confined and drugged in his own hotel? I mean, that's what the.
Well, let me get back to the Jew thing. You could say followers of Judas, because here's a guy who had his own agenda. He had the Messiah right there sitting beside him for 3 years. He knew who he was. He knew the power he had, and yet, like the Zionists, and I'm going to get in the same trouble you're in, but here's the bottom line. Like the Zionists, he was trying to force his own agenda instead of the real one.
All right, we'll get back to the truth about Judaism and Jews by talking about Judas. And when we come back, we got a couple of minute break here, and we'll be right back.